Thanks, Melissa. Thanks, Lynn. Thanks, Ellen, and thanks to everyone in the Advocacy Center team who's been so welcoming for all these years. It's really an honor to be here with you. I also have one other special thanks today. If you saw the news a couple of weeks ago, Facebook's website went down for a little bit, and the public reaction was what really made the news, rather than the fact that the site went down. The reaction was that people started calling 911. So I guess that's the latest example of a public-private partnership, but sorry for that. So yeah, it's my 6th year being up on stage here, kicking off this amazing week. And the last few years I've tried to kind of talk about the same theme, which is that technology is really changing. And I've tried to look at it through the lens of the terminology that young people use. You know, every year I think, all right, I'm doing this again. I can just pull out my speech from last year, and then I look at it and everything's changed. And especially when you look at technology through the eyes of teens. A couple of years ago, I filtered my remarks through a bunch of acronyms that teens were using, and I looked at those acronyms last week, and they're all completely outdated. And last year I talked through hashtags, and those were all outdated. But I found there's one really important word in technology right now that I think we all need to understand. It's a technical term, so I hope you understand it. But it's a word that's critical for understanding teens online today. That word is selfie. I started thinking of the word selfie when my daughter said, what are you doing what is the state of industry remarks? And I said, well, it's kind of like an industry selfie. And they got it. You know, it's an informal picture of how things are going in the tech industry. So I started researching selfies. Did you know that selfies have been around since 1839? The first photograph ever taken by a camera was actually a selfie. According to Samsung, now more than 30% of all pictures taken through phones are selfies. And so then I started making a list of the different types of selfies out there. It turns out there are hundreds. So let me take a walk with you through the different types of selfies and how they're relevant to our work. So there's one called a museum selfie, which is where you take your picture with some background of a museum or history. If we were to take a museum selfie of industry here, we'd see that everything has changed. 6 years ago when I first came up on stage, MySpace was the leading social network, and we didn't call it a selfie, we called it a GPOY, a gratuitous picture of yourself. And of course, those pictures were always where you're standing in front of a bathroom mirror and you're taking the picture and it bounced back at you. Yeah. So sometimes it's good that we have fast change in technology. Last year, when my oldest daughter was going to middle school, I gave her my old iPhone 3S. I thought she'd be really excited that she finally got a phone. It was only a 2-year-old phone. And she looked at it and she said, Dad, this phone, it doesn't have a camera on the front. You can't even take a selfie. You have to turn it around to take a picture of yourself. And then you can't see the screen. So she was very uncool all year with her friends. So I guess, yeah, in the last 6 years, the only technology that hasn't changed dramatically is the FBI's case management system. Sorry. They all left, so I could say that, right? Just kidding. So another selfie is called a belfie. That's a selfie where you show your backside. And you know, let me tell you, when we came here 6 years ago, those of us from industry who were brave enough to come, let's just say we saw a lot of belfies from law enforcement because the relationship has evolved in that time. I think for law enforcement with technology, it's a boon and a bane because it makes your job harder. It's frustrating. The technology is always changing. You have to learn new things all the time, and you have to keep up with new things. And initially, as a lot of companies like Facebook came along, it just looked like the job was getting harder with no help in sight. And so the welcome we received wasn't always what it is today. I mean, the reality is that the job is still hard, but what we've learned, as Director Comey said, is that we have to work together. We have to share best practices. So I'm glad not to be getting those belfies anymore. Another kind of selfie is one that I didn't really understand was a selfie for a long time, which is that picture where you see someone's toes and then the beach. That's called a beach feet selfie. And you know, if you took a beach feet selfie of all of the industry people who are here today, you'd see a lot more toes than you would 6 years ago. And I think that's because we're all learning the importance of this dialogue, this partnership. The Tech Coalition is here and has a track, and for the second year in a row, I think the Virtual Global Task Force is here. So it's really exciting to see the number of companies that are now sponsors to this event and who are sending teams of people here, because the more of us are here, the more we can learn from each other. The next type of selfie is, I think, my favorite. It's called a someone elsey. A someone elsey is the result of your mom trying to take a selfie and not knowing which way to hold the camera. And I think for us, a someone elsey is an important reminder that the kids understand the technology more than we do. Like, we're still trying to figure out how to make that camera work for the selfie, and our kids are using virtual panoramic 360 selfie apps. You know, at the same time, though, we can't be fooled by that native understanding of technology, because they're still kids. They might be better at tech than we are, but they still need our guidance and our oversight. You know, what we see with young people is that they're too trusting. You know, they share passwords. They do things like believe that they can go on anonymous sites and keep their real identities separate. So we need to understand that even when they know the tech much better than we do, they still need parents, teachers, and law enforcement to help them. Another type of selfie is the tiger selfie. The New York State Legislature 2 months ago passed a law that's pending with the governor to ban the tiger selfie. So we got to take this one seriously. The tiger selfie is when men try and get their picture taken next to a large cat, like as in tiger, at the zoo, and then post that picture on a dating site to show how strong they are and brave they are. I'm not sure that that probably won't get outlawed here in Texas, but in New York it probably will. So I think that's an example. When I think of that, I think of law enforcement using social media, kind of like treating it like a wild animal, not sure how close to get to it, but some people jumping right in. And I have some good examples of law enforcement really jumping into social media and the internet that I think are really positive. Just last week, the Staffordshire Police in the UK released a free app that's built, it's an online safety game that's built around their canine unit. And it actually teaches about privacy settings and safety issues. The New South Wales Australian Police set up over 80 Facebook pages for local communities for community policing purposes. In Finland, the police actually use their real identities on Facebook and engage people directly in their role as an officer. And one of my favorite examples was that in 2013, Iceland had a major storm, and they created a page on Facebook to start communicating with the people in the country to give them the most up-to-date information, and so that people could reshare the information. A quarter of the population of the entire country joined that page and now gets updates from the police there. A not so glamorous selfie is the no makeup selfie. This is one where a lot of celebrity women post with no makeup. This is also a law enforcement one from an example standpoint. I would say that last year Snowden posted a no makeup selfie of law enforcement, in a way that was not very flattering. And what we've seen over the last year is it add a level of tension to the relationship, even in the context of working together on child safety. The people who use our services have an expectation that we're going to look at every data request we get from you, no matter the type of case, no matter how compelling it is. They expect that we are going to review it in detail and make sure that you're following the law to the T. And, you know, and when I stand here, I hope I speak on behalf of all the companies here. I think that that's our intention. We really want to do right by the people who use our services, and so that means that we have to spend a lot of time engaged with you explaining how the law works, or how our lawyers think the law works, and getting to the right solution. And I think we have work to do there. One area, for example, that I've seen some things that troubles me is in the context of emergency requests. So, you know, in the U.S. under the law enforcement agencies can bypass getting a subpoena or a search warrant and send in an emergency request if they can articulate what truly is an emergency. Well, in the month of July, my team got 180 of those requests saying, this is a dire situation, we need the data right now, we don't have time to go get the subpoena, that would take us a couple hours. And when we looked at those 180 emergencies, 2/3 of them actually weren't emergencies. They were situations where there really was no urgency to the situation. And so we've got to continue to reflect on the law and how we approach the law and the importance of our integrity in these situations. There's another kind of selfie that law enforcement does like. It's called the self-incriminating selfie. The primary example is Aaron Hernandez, I think. There's one kind of selfie we can do without, though, and I think this is an important one we've talked about the last couple of years here, and that relates to sextortion. Sextortion, as I think most of you know, is the crime where someone is induced to produce a nude photo of themselves or some type of compromising photo, and then they're blackmailed into continuing to produce more. And then, you know, we hear of these young people referred to as cam slaves, as they're controlled for years and forced to produce more and more. I think we're responding to that threat with another kind of selfie, a really important one, called the USSI. The USSI is a group selfie, and I think that there's no better example of an USSI than how we, as industry and law enforcement, have worked together to respond to that. I'll give you an example. Last summer, a 17-year-old in Scotland named Daniel Perry committed suicide. And an investigation showed that he had befriended someone and then started doing video chat with them on an online chat service. The person on the other side, once they had the compromising video, in this case actually told him that he needed to give them $500 or they were going to release the content, and they said they would release it on YouTube and Facebook. So when we learned about this case, we started working with other people in industry and law enforcement, and we were able to look at the friend list, and we could see that there was a new friend who had joined that didn't fit with the rest, and so we realized that that might be a lead. We shared that with CEOP in the UK, who shared it with the Scottish police. Long story short, ICE in the United States, Interpol, the Philippine National Police, Australian National Police, Hong Kong Police, and Singapore Police all worked together on this. And just a couple of months ago in May, there was a major takedown as part of something called Operation Strike Back, where 58 people were arrested in the Philippines. Literally 58 people working as like a business doing sextortion. And in that case, they were actually able to arrest 3 people who it's alleged were the ones that had extorted Daniel. And I think that there's another stark reminder from this type of case, which is the prevention. Well, number one, prevention is critical, but number two, getting counseling and support to these teens is equally as important. Just like in the Amanda Todd case, it was a situation where that teen, if someone had intervened and had been there, that they'd been willing to talk to someone, or even if they had talked to someone, the person knew how to help them, maybe they wouldn't have committed suicide. And there's one other last example of an USSI I want to mention, and that is the way we're working together on photo DNA. Photo DNA is an amazing technology that came out of the work of Microsoft and some university folks, and it's been adopted by a lot of companies. And what it is a way that if we get, if we receive the hash of an image, of a child exploitation image, we can then run that against photos that come through our service. And quite a number of companies do this now, and it has proven very effective. And just at this conference last year, there was a lot of dialogue among the industry that we really need to have a better shared hash list and more collaboration on this. And so it's a year later, and I'm happy to say that like a beta program is already up and running. We have really good support from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, and everyone is working toward this shared goal. So that's pretty awesome. Okay, the last type of selfie that I'll leave you with is, it's called the Peace Out selfie, and it's a good way to finish my remarks. That's the one with the sideways peace sign. You probably see a lot of those out there. Like I said, I've been up here and had the chance to be at this conference for 6 years. It never gets old standing up here and watching the bagpipes come in. It never gets old sitting up here watching you appreciate the keynote speaker yet to come today, and see how motivated and fired up you are at the end of this morning to go out and to learn and to share and collaborate and make sure that the kids come first. So thank you again for the opportunity to be here.